Hi, this is your host. Today we're going to find out humans didn't only mate with Neanderthals. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe for more amazing discoveries like this one. Without further ado, let's get started. They discovered this by analyzing DNA from a 40,000-year-old bone fragment from a child found in Siberia's Denisova cave, where the mysterious hominid species was first identified a decade ago. This individual is so far the youngest member of her species ever found. Its unique geological features made it a natural shelter for ancient humans seeking refuge from the harsh weather conditions. The cave's entrance is nestled between towering rock faces, creating a sheltered space that would have been appealing to prehistoric inhabitants. They discovered that this mysterious species was so genetically distinct that it had to be classified as a third type of ancient human. The Denisovan genome revealed that it diverged from the Neanderthal lineage around the same time that Neanderthals split from Homo sapiens, approximately 550,000 years ago. In fact, denisovans were more similar in body weight to humans from East Africa today. But until now, there has been limited information about when and where this occurred, as well as the extent of their interactions. According to Svante Pabo, director of the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig, Germany, and senior author of the study, the girl was estimated to be around 16 years old when she died, and her remains included a finger bone and a piece of tooth enamel. Surprisingly, the girl's genome showed no signs of gene flow from the denisovans back into the modern human population. This contrasts with the Neanderthals, whose genetic legacy can still be found in Europe and Asia today. For example, the researchers were unable to determine whether the two groups coexisted peacefully or competed for resources. The discovery that humans interbred with denisovans at least twice challenges the traditional view of human evolution as a linear progression and highlights the interconnectedness of our past. It suggests that our ancestors did not evolve in isolation, but interacted with other ancient hominids in complex ways. It's also unclear whether the denisovans hunted or foraged for food and what role, if any, they played in the extinction of other ancient human species. By comparing her genome to that of other ancient humans, researchers discovered that she had both Neanderthal. The study of ancient DNA requires the use of highly specialized equipment and expertise, and access to such resources is not equally distributed around the world. This could lead to a situation where research on ancient DNA is dominated by a few countries, potentially marginalizing the perspectives and interests of other nations and modern human ancestry, indicating that both groups interbred with denisovans separately in two different regions of Asia. It's essential to consider the ethical implications of this research and ensure that it's conducted in a way that respects the cultural and intellectual property rights of all nations. As new technologies and techniques are developed, we can expect to learn even more about the history of human evolution and the relationships between ancient human species. Whether they were friends or foes, one thing is certain. Our past is full of surprises, and we are only just beginning to uncover them. We've got lots of amazing videos coming up. Make sure you don't miss out. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Fossil evidence suggests that Neanderthals lived in Europe and parts of Asia from about 400,000 to 45,000 years ago, and they interbred with modern humans on multiple occasions. The recent discovery of the Denisovan girl's genome provides the most concrete evidence yet of interbreeding between these two species. It doesn't tell us whether the different human species lived in close proximity, interacted regularly, or shared technology and knowledge. However, it does suggest that they were capable of forming relationships and producing offspring together. Some people today, particularly those of European descent, still carry small amounts of Neanderthal DNA in their genomes, reflecting this ancient interbreeding. Denisovans were leaner and smaller than Neanderthals, with long and slender limbs and fingers. Similar to humans living in tropical regions today, evidence from the mitochondrial DNA of the Denisovan girl indicates that this interbreeding event took place after the split between the ancestors of the Neanderthals and Denisovans. Approximately 1,000 years later, a second interbreeding event occurred when another group of modern humans from East Africa met with denisovans on the Tibetan plateau. This suggests that denisovans were more widespread than previously thought, and that multiple breeding events with modern humans are likely. So while they may have shared some physical traits with Neanderthals, denisovans were likely more gracile and adapted to a different set of environments. However, Unlike Neanderthals, very little is known about denisovans. Alternatively, it's possible that the denisovans went extinct before the modern humans they interbred with expanded out of Africa. Their existence is inferred from only 3 known fossil specimens found in Siberia and China. Over the years, this shelter served as a temporary home for various human populations, including the Neanderthals and denisovans. Unfortunately, we don't have a clear picture of what denisovans looked like, because we haven't found any complete skeletons. Our knowledge is based on the analysis of 3 fragments: a finger bone, a tooth, and a jawbone. These fragments suggest that they likely resembled Neanderthals in appearance. However, they may have had a larger brain and a lower forehead. Additionally, we know that they had a single prominent ridge over the top of their eye sockets, a strong brow ridge, a low and receding forehead, and prominent cheekbones. Their jaws were robust, and their teeth were large and adapted for chewing tough plant matter. Overall, denisovans were stocky and muscular, well-suited for survival in cold climates. These groups left behind their mark in the form of stone tools, indicating their occupation of the area during different periods. Scientists recently made an astounding discovery about our ancestors, confirming that they had sex with mysterious human relatives known as denisovans. It's been dubbed the Paston Cueva, because of how rich it is in archaeological treasures. In 2008, scientists discovered the first denisovan fossils in the cave, which is located in the southern part of Siberia's Altai Mountains. Our story begins in Siberia, where scientists have been excavating a cave known as Denisova Cave. The Denisova Cave is situated in a vast, remote area with steep cliffs and deep ravines that played a significant role in shaping the history of early humans. The discovery of these fossils provided invaluable insights into the history of human evolution. By studying their remains, scientists were able to learn about their physical characteristics, behavior, and the environment in which they lived. One particular find, a small bone from a young individual, has been instrumental in understanding their genetic makeup, according to National Geographic. The genetic information also suggests that denisovans lived much further south than previously thought, in what is now the Tibetan Plateau, suggesting that they adapted to high altitudes and cold climates. In 2010, scientists extracted DNA from the bone and compared it to that of Neanderthals and modern humans. Now you might be asking yourself, what did these mysterious human species look like? However, despite their stocky appearance, a study published in Cell in June 2023 suggests that they were not as heavy as Neanderthals. Their existence up until around 40,000 years ago overlaps with that of modern humans, and evidence suggests that the 2 species interbred. To gain further insight, an international team of researchers analyzed the genome of a young Denisovan girl whose bones were found in Denisova Cave. The findings suggest that the first interbreeding event occurred roughly 54,000 years ago, when a group of modern humans from Africa encountered denisovans in what is now southern Siberia. One interesting finding was that the Denisovan girl had a Neanderthal ancestor from about 40,000 years earlier, indicating a complex history of interbreeding between these ancient human species. Researchers believe that this could be due to the relatively small number of denisovans who were alive at the time, or that the interbreeding events occurred too long ago for such traces to remain in the modern genome. While the study sheds light on the interactions between denisovans and modern humans, many questions remain unanswered. However, the study does provide valuable insight into the complex history of human evolution. The genetic evidence for interbreeding between humans and Neanderthals dates back to when modern humans migrated out of Africa around 70,000 years ago. On the other hand, the evidence of interbreeding between humans and denisovans is more limited. Although it has been suggested that some populations in Melanesia and Aboriginal Australians may carry denisovan DNA, it's important to note that the genetic evidence for interbreeding does not provide information about the cultural or social aspects of these relationships. Furthermore, the genetic evidence for interbreeding between humans and other ancient hominids raises ethical considerations. As we continue to learn more about our ancient relatives, overall, the study of ancient human DNA is an exciting and rapidly evolving field. There were actually 2 distinct times when humans interbred with denisovans. This is exciting stuff. Let's break it down. First event, somewhere between 450 and 600,000 years ago, the ancestors of Melanesians, the people from Papua New Guinea and the Pacific Islands, they inherited up to 5% denisovan DNA. And then about 100,000 years later, some East Asians, the Han Chinese, the Chinese Dai, and the Japanese, the first one we know was here in Eastern Asia. But the second location was probably further south, somewhere like Indonesia or even Australia. They also got their hands on some denisovan DNA. But this group was more closely related to the Siberian denisovan sample. So the term archaic humans refers to any human species or subspecies that existed before Homo sapiens. That's us. Or modern humans arose in Africa roughly 300,000 years ago. The best-known archaic humans are the Neanderthals and the denisovans. Now, where did this interbreeding happen? Well, likely in two places. And now we think that denisovans may have been living in two different regions, Eastern Asia and Oceania, at the same time as modern humans. Their genes show that they mostly stayed within their own regions, rarely, if ever, expanding beyond them. Now, what makes this so interesting is that it shows that interbreeding between humans and denisovans was just a one-off. The results showed that Melanesian populations absorbed between 3 and 5% of their total DNA from these denisovans. The first one was between the ancestors of modern Melanesians and the local denisovans in Papua New Guinea. They interbred somewhere between 450 and 600,000 years ago. A few thousand years later, somewhere in East Asia, different groups of humans interbred with a different group of denisovans, the ones that were more closely related to the Siberian denisovan sample. The denisovans were first identified in 2010 from a finger bone found in a Siberian cave. We have the Siberian denisovans and then 3 others that are found in Papua New Guinea. No, it was probably a pattern of behavior that happened more than once. Or maybe it was just a case of humans being humans. Maybe they just wanted to. We can't deny it. We have the genes to prove it. It didn't happen right before our species left Africa. But interestingly, they think the second event happened in a completely different region from the first. So after the initial interbreeding in Oceania, more interbreeding must have happened when humans moved into Eastern Asia. So this first wave of interbreeding would have occurred after modern humans arrived in Oceania, perhaps along the northern coast of what is now Australia. Instead, it happened sometime during the initial expansion of modern humans out of Africa about 50,000 years ago. The 4 different groups are so genetically distinct that if they were still around today, they wouldn't even be able to mate with each other. They got their name from the cave's Russian name, Denisova. No, it happened multiple times in different places over a span of 200,000 years. They say maybe it was a way for humans to adapt to new environments. After all, the denisovans were living in those areas for hundreds of thousands of years. So they would have had some pretty good genes for surviving there. So who are the denisovans? They are an extinct group of archaic humans. Now both groups were around for much of the Pleistocene epoch, and they overlapped with modern humans for tens of thousands of years. And this is where things get complicated because there are actually 4 different denisovan groups. So we can tell that the denisovan species split into different groups and then evolved separately long before our species. Homo sapiens even showed up. In fact, we know that both Neanderthals and denisovans had their own distinct home turf. But wait, there's more. We're talking about 2 separate waves of interbreeding between denisovans and humans. And we know this because the DNA of those ancient denisovans was compared to the DNA of modern humans from Papua New Guinea and Australia. What's more, the researchers found that the gene flow from denisovans into the human population was not recent. Remember, the denisovans were only found in Siberia and Papua New Guinea. But there's also evidence of a second event. The fact that we're talking about 2 separate waves of interbreeding suggests that it was a random event. Researchers say that both events happened shortly after modern humans migrated out of Africa. But why? Why did humans seek out denisovans over and over again? Honestly, we don't know. Researchers can only speculate. By acquiring those genes, humans could have better adapted to the local environment, made it easier for them to live there. Well, whatever the reason, this really tells us that the history between our species is a lot more tangled than we thought. Speaking of which, if you want to learn more about your own genes and how they make you, thanks for watching.